Hi, everyone. Welcome to Happy Hour, the show where great minds drink alike. My name is Jennifer Brown, vintner at BACA Wines, and your host today. We have a great guest today, the world-famous opera singer Isabel Leonard, who's going to join me in just a minute. But before she does, let me tell you what's going on in our neck of the woods. We are in the middle of pruning in the vineyards, which means that our vineyard team is going through and cutting back last year's growth to leave room for this year's growth, to make sure that all of our vines have plenty of space to breathe and produce those beautiful clusters of grapes that we're so excited about. We're also in the middle of bottling our 2021 wines, so our 2020 wines, excuse me, which is very exciting. And we're still vinifying, which means making wine out of our 2021 wines. So things are super busy, as you can imagine, at the winery and in the vineyards, but it's all really wonderful stuff. So I'm so excited for our guest today, Isabel Leonard. She is a multiple Grammy Award winner. She is a world-famous mezzo-soprano opera singer and classical singer. She has done so many things, and I can't wait to talk to her about her recent performances and what life is like as an opera singer. Hi, Isabel.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, very good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. Well, first things first, I think we should toast because it is hump day and we both do have glasses of wine in front of us.
Yes, we do.
Cheers.
Cheers. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. What do you think?
It's really nice.
That's
that's super chic of me. It's so nice.
Oh no, that's perfect. We love
it.
Nice.
It's
nice
really delicious.
What we're going for.
I'm glad I have an entire bottle to myself.
Good. Well, I'm so glad. And like I mentioned, we'll do a little bit more of a formal wine tasting in a minute, but
great. You can walk me through it. That's exciting.
Wonderful. For also right away, did you recently have a big birthday or do you have a big one coming up?
It's coming up February 18th. Actually, I'm turning 40. I could not be happier about it, to be honest. I am super excited.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I feel like life is too short not to celebrate big milestones in our lives.
Absolutely. I plan on celebrating pretty much all year round. I've already planned like 2 different celebrations thus far.
Good.
So, and I'm sure there'll be more to come. So, and this is a good, nothing like a nice bottle of wine.
Exactly.
So we're celebrating early too.
What celebrations are you planning? If you might want to share.
I mean, we're going to have like a dinner with just like a small group of friends. And then I'll do another little birthday dinner with my son and like very close family, to give him sort of a place to sort of do like what he would want to do for my birthday. I always think that's sort of fun. And then I'm looking to do like a bigger thing later, a few months down the line. And then who knows, if we're not done partying, we'll do some more later.
Oh, well, that's
wonderful. Always find excuses.
Well, and I don't know if you're traveling to Europe as much as you used to for work, but I imagine you could, if you are traveling to Europe, you could probably squeeze in something international.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? I feel like you said, those milestones are really important. So even if it's, into the next year, I feel like you could take a whole year from the day of your birthday to the next one.
I think you should.
Celebrate the whole year of 40, right?
My husband likes to say that I like to celebrate my birthday for the entire month in April, but I like where you're going. The full year, that's really the way to go.
Hello. Yeah. I think it's great.
That's amazing. Well, you've played so many iconic roles in the opera world. You are about to play, and you have played Carmen in Carmen, played Cherubino in The Marriage of Figaro, so many amazing roles. And I thought I would just share some pictures of some of those roles and let you tell us about them. So I think this is a picture of Cinderella, which
it is, yeah.
Was playing around the holidays. Is it still going on at the Met?
No, that one is closed now, but that was over the holidays. So that was the English language version of Cendrillon, which is an opera by Massenet. So it's originally in French. And then the Met every season does 1 or 2 productions in which they do them fully in English and they reduce them. So it's about a 90-minute opera. So it's
a little more accessible.
Yeah, really, really family friendly. My son came to see it and I had lots of friends who brought their children, young and older. And just like, family, it's like just a great kind of family outing because you don't get out so late. And so you can still go get dinner and do that whole thing, right? Without it being super, super late.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah.
Well, you look beautiful, and it just looks like every little girl's dream to be able to wear a dress like this.
I know. I mean, it's like anybody's dream, right? It's like anybody who wants to wear a dress. I have like lots of friends, you know, who are like, "Oh, can I borrow that?"
What do you say? I'm guessing the answer is probably no, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I wish it were mine, but it's not, right? I was like, go ask the Met's costume department.
I bet they keep pretty tight wraps on that.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
You
also
can't
from
you can't
Cinderella.
sneak out with your costumes.
They check your bag as you're leaving the building.
Yeah.
So is this the scene? So I haven't seen Cinderella or Cendrillon, but I assume this is the scene where Cinderella can't go to the ball.
Well,
that
so this particular scene is actually right in the very beginning, where she just comes in and she's talking a little bit about what her sisters and father have all been talking about, and that they're leaving for the ball. And so she goes, "Well, I have work to do." And so she, you know, putters around, does some things, and then she's like, "And now I'm done. I guess I'll go to sleep because there's nothing else better to do." So she falls asleep, and then it's the scene after where the fairy godmother comes in and tells her that she's going to basically change her life. And in that picture you saw before, where I'm standing there sort of looking like I'm sleeping, it's sort of this obviously theater magical moment where I kind of leave the stage and I come back actually from under the stage, having fully changed, and I come up this hydraulic lift, sort of as if I were still sleeping. So she kind of like wakes up from her dream, and she's wearing her beautiful ball gown, and she's very shocked.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah. And then she goes to the ball, you know, and meets the prince, right? And they fall in love in 2 seconds, as apparently that's what they do. Right?
Just like real life, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
And then I have a picture of probably one of your most iconic roles.
That's the girl playing the boy playing the girl. So that's actually one of the boy roles that I sing, as we would call them, pants roles. And Cherubino is probably anywhere like from 13 to 16 years old. He's actually a young boy. He's super hormonal. So he's super girl crazy. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very, he's actually a super lovable character, because he just can't contain himself, you know, as a young boy. And in this particular scene, the woman on the right is the countess, and he is madly kind of in love with her. I mean, he's in love with all the women he sees, as he sings about, but she is kind of like the epitome of love for him. And then Susanna on the left side is one of the maids that works for the countess. And they're devising this huge plot to trick the count, actually, who's a bit of a cad and a bit of a womanizer, to catch him in one of his affairs, basically. But in this particular scene, yeah. So right, side.
Is Susanna the one that gets married to?
She is the one that gets married. So the whole thing is called Le Nozze di Figaro, right? And Figaro is one of the gentlemen that works in the castle, and they're getting married. And it's a very long, kind of complicated story, but it is actually quite funny. And it's definitely one of those operas when people ask me, I've never been to the opera, I don't know what to go see, like I feel kind of daunted by the whole thing, what should I go see? Actually, this is one of the pieces I always recommend, because I think it's really funny. It's a little long, but it's really funny. So
how long is it?
It's like with intermission, it's 3.5 hours. So if you get a drink at intermission, the second half is even funnier. And it goes by a little faster or slower, depending on how you take your drinks.
Well, and it has really recognizable songs.
It does. Yeah, there are a lot of like pretty recognizable things in here. And like I said, Cherubino, the part that I play, is really kind of goofy and funny. So I always, you know, I goof around on stage quite a bit, as you can sort of see. And that always makes it go by pretty quickly.
Well, I love that. And, you know, I was reading some reviews about you, and that's something that a lot of the reviews said, is that you really have such a great comic ability you, in addition to your, you know, vocal talents and acting abilities, but that comedy is not easy. So that's amazing that you are a triple threat, if you will.
Well, that's nice to hear. That's nice to hear. I have definitely lived for a long time with this character, and I've had years to really kind of like build it up to a point where it's really kind of a second skin that I put on, you know? So he's a lot of fun.
Well, for those people who are not as familiar with the opera singer, I don't know if you call them roles or I don't mean character roles. I mean mezzo soprano versus alto. Can you just maybe briefly talk about what mezzo soprano means and what range you cover?
Sure. I mean, basically, like anybody who's sung in like a choir or something at school understands the whole soprano, alto, tenor, bass situation. Um, and with opera, it is essentially, soprano, alto. We do sort of talk about altos in opera. I mean, it absolutely happens. Um, Sopranos are essentially like the higher female voices, and the mezzo sopranos are like the slightly less higher female voices. But there are a lot of kind of like blurred fine lines in between those two voice types. Oftentimes, at least for me particularly, I would oftentimes not call myself either one of them because I sit
Oh, I
sort of in
see.
the middle, and I
See.
sing sometimes roles that are for sopranos and sometimes ones that are for mezzos. And so for many, many years, I stopped labeling myself. And what's really funny is that when you go to see a program now, I always make kind of a bet with myself to see what I am that day,
Oh, how funny.
because it's now I've always because I'm always like, just don't label me. And sometimes presenters, like, they freak out and they don't know what to do. Like they need, it's like they have this need to label you. So now when I go do a concert or a recital or an opera, I look at the program to see if I'm a mezzo or a soprano that day.
Yeah. Here's what I am today. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think more and more now they're more blurred lines. There are definitely some very high soprano roles that like I just wouldn't sing because it's just not my voice type. And probably some very, very low mezzo roles that wouldn't necessarily be my voice type. And that's, but there's a lot, because kind of like a lot in between. So,
well, so when an opera is written like a musical piece, you have to have certain notes. So that means that only certain people can play. I guess what I'm asking is, the way an opera is written, you can only have a soprano sing, someone who can sing soprano sing the soprano part. Is that right? They would never change the octave or the notes to work for someone else?
Right. It's like, exactly. I mean, for the most part, you're not going to find like a pop singer, for example, who wants to sing a really famous song written by somebody else and that they change it into a key that fits their voice. Like,
Right.
that's a very
That's what I
normal
was
thing
thinking
to
of.
do. Right. But in the opera world, it's not really something that's done. I would say that there are small exceptions. Sometimes there are roles in operas where they'll say, well, do you sing that aria in this key or this key? And for whatever the reason is, the performance practice over the years, there have been two versions of it. Or there are a few operas, one kind of relatively obscure opera, another French piece. The main male role in the opera can actually be sung by either a tenor or a baritone, which are also one is slightly higher than the other.
Right.
But there's like two different versions basically of the piece because of the discrepancy in those two different voice types.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but generally speaking, not really. I mean, we did recently, Stephanie Blythe and Jamie Barton, two colleagues of mine, just recently did a production of Carmen, in which Stephanie Blythe was singing Don José, who's normally sung by a tenor, right? And so she kind of was like, I can sing it, because she's got a really beautiful deep mezzo voice.
Amazing.
Yeah, so they were like pushing the box a little bit, which was really fun.
Oh, that's really fun.
Yeah.
Well, and then I was tickled because I was Googling before talking to you, what kinds of roles mezzo-sopranos normally sing. And then I saw that, oftentimes mezzo-sopranos sing boys or seductress women, things like that.
Boys, whores, and sisters.
Talk about typecasting. I mean, come on.
Right. We need more wine for this conversation. Exactly. No.
So when you were at Juilliard, you trained to be a singer, did you know right then that those were the kinds of roles you were going to play?
That's why I went into the opera world in the first place, right? Boys, whores, and best friends.
I guess it would be boring to play like the innocent young woman every time.
It seemed like a really natural fit for me. No. No. I actually had no idea. To be totally honest, I did not know what I was getting myself into becoming an opera singer. And it sort of like crept up on me really in a very sneaky fashion. I really loved the music. I mean, I sang like everybody. I sang musical theater in high school. I sang with the jazz band. I danced. I did all of these different things. I I was like one click away actually going to the musical theater program at NYU when I was choosing what university to go to. So I made a kind of a decision at that time to go to Juilliard and get a classical training. And then I thought, well, I'll decide later, you know, whether I want to sing classical music or musical theater or whatever. And then I was really fortunate because everything kept on developing and kind of unfolding, as you will, in a relatively natural fashion. And I ended up working pretty soon after my master's degree. And then 16 years went by and I was like, oh, still singing opera, boys. And
suddenly you're an expert in your field.
Yeah,
you know?
Suddenly I'm an expert at playing a 13-year-old hormonal teenage boy. Yeah. I always say, like, I had danced a lot when I was younger, and I was in the Nutcracker actually a couple times with the Joffrey Ballet. And
amazing.
And actually, the second year that I did the Nutcracker, I was a boy in the party scene, and I was 11, so I was mortified because at that time, for me at least, to play a boy was not what I wanted. It was not cool to me. But somebody should have just said, just get used to it now.
You're going to be doing a lot more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's too funny. Well, I think so many people are probably interested what it's like a day in the life of yours. I think you could maybe describe, I mean, obviously you have days when you're not performing, but maybe you could pick a typical day when you are performing. Like, what's your routine like? What time do you show up at the opera house, and sort of what kind of actions you take before you go on stage?
Sure. I mean, my days are pretty crazy. I have an 11-year-old son, so I've been a single mom this whole time, and so I am constantly doing something. I would say that actually, since I had my son, the notion of being precious about what you need or don't need in order to perform has kind of gone out the window, because you're not afforded that luxury because you have somebody else to take care of. So, you know, I like get up, take him to school. On a show day, for example, I'll get him to school and I'll go straight home and I'll go back to bed because I need to be awake, right? So on a show day, that's what I would do. I would like make sure that show days I don't have like anything else I need to do. I would take as long of a nap as possible. I'm a great napper.
Good for you. Me too.
Yeah. And usually I like to get to the theater actually about 2 hours before the show starts, or about 2 hours before I make my first entrance, which gives me, you know, an hour to do hair and makeup or whatever it is that I need to do to get ready in that sense. And then another hour to really warm up and get my body going and kind of go through all of the exercises and things that I like to do without feeling rushed. So it seems like a long time. It can be a long evening, you know, when you get to the theater at whatever 5 and you're not out until midnight or something. It seems like a long night, but you sort of, you know, you sort of get used to it, right?
Once you're on stage, do you feel a rush of energy from performing?
Yeah, it depends. You know, different roles sort of take different things out of you. I mean, I think some roles leave you totally depleted by the end of the night, because they're either particularly challenging or they're emotionally very challenging or they're very, very long. I would say that the older I get, the more tired I am at the end of the night.
Well, I think that's true for all of us.
I would say so, right? It's not an unusual thing. I think in the beginning of my career, I could really feel I would still have like a rush of energy at the end of a show, which would last like 45 minutes or so, being out and saying hello. And then I would sit down and I would maybe have a meal with friends or go out or whatever. And about 30 minutes or so, usually into the meal, I would just crash.
I bet.
And my whole, like, I would just, you know. But now I would say it's also, again, with experience and repetition, you kind of learn how to maybe pace yourself a little bit better.
Well, and in a way, you're lucky that you're not in musical theater, right? Because musical theater is every day, no breaks, right? And usually the opera schedule is 2 or 3 days a week. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, I don't know how the musical theater people do it, honestly.
Or 2 shows in one day, even. I mean, that's crazy.
I don't know. I mean, it's great to have like a microphone and everything, and I wish I could sing with a microphone, but even then you're still using your voice, you know, you're still actively and not to mention that, but if you're dancing or singing and dancing 8 shows a week, or I mean, it's a different kind of stamina. It's a different kind of
Of
race.
course, their shows aren't 4 hours long, so that's
also true, right? They are, I guess, a little bit shorter. I know, and some of ours can be epically long.
Right? What is the one it's like 3 days?
Girl, it's like the Ring cycle.
The
It's like
Ring, yes.
Wagner. I don't know.
Yes.
Some people, I gotta tell you, like, there are die-hard Wagner fans out there.
Right.
They're a group, and they find each other and they know each other. They go see shows together, and a lot of times, it's like this person won't go with their husband or wife because the husband or wife can't stand it. So they have like the group of friends they go see Wagner with, it's like, because otherwise they'd go alone.
That is so funny.
Yeah, it definitely becomes a thing.
Yeah, you probably have to carve out that group. It's not everyone that wants to do that. So.
Well, I mean, it's a taste like everything else. Not everybody wants to go see musical theater, and not everybody likes country music. Not everybody likes jazz.
Well, speaking of that, like what appeals to whom? What are your thoughts on how to make the opera be more appealing to a wider audience, and how can it attract a younger audience in particular?
It's a hard question. I think that for now, I think the opera world has been doing its not its best per se, but it's been doing a really good job at trying to reach out to younger audiences by like these shorter productions, these in English holiday productions is, one of the efforts I think that many companies will do to make it more accessible, make it easier for people to bring their children, because ultimately, I think we all know this, that fundamentally, any change that we want to make, whether it's culturally or socially or anything, has to do with our children, right? And if we are raising our children to, be kind and to listen to a variety of music and to respect all people and to, I won't get on my soapbox, right? But if we can do that at the level of children, that's where things change, and that's how we evolve, and that's how you instill an interest, I think, into someone. I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't learn to love opera when you're older too, right? And some of the stories are more appropriate for a more mature audience, right?
Definitely.
Speaking of boys' toys and horrors and things like that. But I think that there are ways. I love when the opera houses do talkbacks and the singers stand on stage.
What's that? I don't know what that is.
So, I mean, sometimes you'll have a production that's going on, and whether it's after opening or maybe after the final dress rehearsal, the opera will do like a talkback. So they'll let the audience stay, or a group of the audience stay, and they can ask questions from the singers and get to see the singers as humans, rather than this sort of far away, misunderstood, really.
Right. Something
artist.
You can't relate to as easily, I'm sure.
Yeah. And a lot of people, interestingly enough, don't know that when you go see the opera, there are usually either subtitles on the chair in front of you or super titles above the stage. So, it's like seeing a foreign film. You just read to know what's going on, or you tune it out and you just listen to the pretty music and enjoy it and, feel there's like nothing like it, right? There's like nothing like listening to a live orchestra and live voices that are not amplified, and you get sort of, I don't know, I think you can get really mesmerized by the whole thing, the whole process.
I completely agree. It's so beautiful. I think everyone would agree that it's beautiful. It's probably just something they're not used to. And I think so many, especially younger people, are used to shorter sound bites. So they'll probably have to adjust.
Well, and look, especially now, even more so now than ever before, with all of social media essentially throwing nothing but like 15-second clips at you. It's really hard to say, hey, I know you're accustomed to seeing 15-second clips that are supposed to grab you every 5 seconds, but I'd like you to come and sit for 3.5 hours. And I mean, even when my son went to see, he went to see Marriage of Figaro, which is 3.5 hours. And he did really well. I mean, I got the reports later, right? He did really well. But at the end, apparently he was sitting in his chair. He was like, he wanted to yawn. And my friend that was with him was like, Sit down.
Stay right
Stop
here.
doing that. And he was like, I have to do it. He's like, just wait, just wait. And so when it was finally over, they went off into a little room and he was like, you know? And he's like, you don't understand. I was sitting still for 3.5 hours. I was like, no, I get it. So,
Yeah.
you do what you got to do. You build up your endurance, and you get to know the people on stage, like people that don't see opera normally. When I meet them, or I meet people, like I meet millions of people when I travel and fly because I talk to everybody. So sometimes I'll invite them, like, come see me in the opera because they've never been. And it's immediately already so much more fun for them because we talked in an airplane for 2.5 hours, so.
Yeah. Oh, you're so kind that you talk to people next to you on the airplane. I generally
Well, not everybody. It depends. It depends. Not everybody wants to talk, so it's okay. I'm a really anxious flyer, so I get really chatty.
You do get chatty, yeah. Well, I hear that sometimes wine can help with that too.
I know, exactly.
I was just before we talk about the wine, I just want to ask you one more follow-up question, which is, are there new operas being written now? I mean, do you think that might be something else that could help, like having more modern, maybe more diverse?
Absolutely. There are always new operas. I mean, I've done actually quite a number of new pieces over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually tons. There was just now a Fire Shut in My Bones, which was written by Terence Blanchard, and they just had the premiere of that at the Met, which was terrific. And for example, I did a piece by Nico Muhly like 3 or 4 years ago now, called Marnie, based on the book that Hitchcock made his film from. So that was really exciting. It's a very really interesting psychological role to play. And there are other pieces, like I sang the role of Ada in Cold Mountain, which it's funny. It's just really a coincidence that the two that I've done thus far have been also movies. But Ada I don't know if anybody saw Cold Mountain from many years ago with Nicole Kidman and Jude Law and stuff.
Oh, I have seen that. Yes, I do.
It's a Civil War movie where they meet like for like I guess in the book it's a little longer, but it feels like a hot second, and they fall in love, and then he leaves and he spends basically the entire story trying to get back to her. So that was fun. But that was fun because I had to sing in a North Carolina accent.
Oh my gosh. That must be so difficult. I can't even. Well, you have to now know like Italian, French, German accents. Probably. I've seen a Czech opera before. I don't know if you've ever done a Czech opera, but I can't even imagine. So many different accents.
So many different languages to learn. I mean, I would say that because we spend all of our time in a foreign language, obviously it becomes second nature. Some of them become second nature. But it is a challenge. It's an extra thing to memorize because you want to know what you're saying. So not only do you have to pronounce it correctly, but you need to know what you're saying. So there's a lot of memorization that goes into doing these things.
So when you go to foreign countries, do you just have to sing to people because that's the only way you know how to communicate in their language?
I think they would kick me out. What are you doing, crazy lady? No, but what is funny is that I've learned a ton of vocabulary. Like a ton of vocabulary in French, or I speak French at this point, but even in something like Italian, and even in my French, right? That with all of the French repertoire that I sing, I've learned a lot of semi-archaic vocabulary, or more call it like more poetic things. So sometimes I'll say something in French, and they'll be like, "We don't really use that word anymore."
You're like,
it would be like,
we're like,
the Bible. How art thou? Like in English, right?
Right.
So it's always a little bit funny. You're like, oh, that's not like the colloquial way of saying that, So.
Well, you speak very properly, I'm sure, in all the languages. So
we'll see. Everybody's very nice. Like there is definitely everybody understands that, at least when it comes to speaking. Now, when you sing it, you don't want to make mistakes, right? But the speaking is a thing.
Well, that's incredible. Gosh, I could ask you questions about that for forever, but I think I will tell you a little bit about this wine that we're drinking because we might want to do a little wine tasting.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you that I chose this wine for today. It's called Stargazing. First, because you're a huge star, obviously. And then second of all, because it's actually, here it is on camera. It actually comes from two very historical grapes. They're French grapes from the Rhone region, originally grown in California. But you don't see them very often. They have a lot of history, but we make it in a more modern way. And I thought that was perfect because you're a very modern woman in a very historical art form. So
Oh, I like that.
yeah,
That's very appropriate. Oh.
yes. And so we call this stargazing because it comes from this beautiful vineyard that's along the Russian River, which is in Mendocino, which is pretty far north in California. And it basically grows along the curving banks of the river, and it's a perfect, quiet place to actually go stargazing, one of my favorite activities. Um, and it comes from these two grapes, like I mentioned. They're called Roussanne and Marsanne, two French grapes. And in the Rhone region of France, you often see them blended together, which is what we did as well. But they're really wonderful wines that have a lot of acidity and also a lot of body.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I taste this wine, I get stone fruit on the nose, so kind of like a nectarine, peachy flavor, as well as a little bit of cream soda. And it's got a little bit heavier weight than some other wines. Like if you're drinking a Sauvignon Blanc or a lighter wine, you won't feel that weight, whereas this is more full-bodied. So give it a little taste and we can maybe talk about it.
Now that you say that, I'm like, oh, I totally taste that. All of it.
Do you? Yeah, good. We aged this wine for about 10 months, and it's aged both in neutral oak. And oak barrels are wonderful for all different kinds of reasons. They can give flavor, they can give body. We choose neutral oak because it doesn't give it that toasted flavor that toasted barrels can, but it does give it body. And then we put it in concrete because it gives a little bit more minerality, and minerality is something that we love in our white wines. Minerality is usually that thing in a wine that you can't pinpoint, but it has this really lovely sort of lift of acidity. Some people describe it as licking a whetstone, but it often means that the grapes were picked earlier, so they have, and they're from a cooler region, so it's higher in acid. What do you think?
I really like it. I'm definitely a white wine person. I actually can't really drink red wines, or at least I find that when I have in the past, I get super congested, which is unfortunately, if I were not a singer, I wouldn't care. But because I am,
your voice, of course.
So in a way, like anything that sort of affects my job, I kind of go, oh, well, So, and I've had people in the past tell me like, oh, it's the tannins or it's this, that, or whatever. And I don't know enough about wine to, agree or disagree, but I do like this one a lot. I like that it is, and you can tell me more about this, because again, I am not a connoisseur, but for me, I like if I drink wine and it feels super, super smooth and it doesn't have this it doesn't attack my throat. Again, I'm hypersensitive, right? Because of what I do.
Right.
If it doesn't attack the back of my throat, I'm like, I will. Cheers to you. We'll continue drinking this wine. So this is lovely. This is so.
Oh, absolutely. In the wine business, we call that well balanced. So the wine is well balanced. There's nothing out of whack. There's not too much alcohol. There's not too much acid. It just all plays well together like a piece of music.
Well, there you go. I mean, I guess that seems kind of. I suppose it should be well balanced, right? As most humans should be well balanced.
Right. It's something that we all strive for anyway.
Right. It is. Well, you've succeeded with this one. It's really nice. Well, and I'm excited that I have this full bottle and another one.
Yay. Good. Well, enjoy it. I've so loved talking to you. Before we close, I would love to tell everyone where they can see you in your upcoming performances.
Sure. Right now, I'm going to start rehearsals pretty soon back at the Met Opera for a German piece by Strauss called Ariadne, which I'm actually playing a boy in again. And it's the role of the composer, actually. So he is this also semi-dramatic young man who has kind of like lofty ideals about relationships and women and all these things. And then he eventually sort of lets it go by the wayside, sort of doesn't. He's a bit of a drama person, and I don't have a lot of time for that in my personal life, but it is fun to kind of play the character.
Right. Escape into that role.
Yeah, exactly. I can basically, in him, I can instill all the people that kind of drive me crazy, and I can put them in him. And then after that, I have, what's going on after that? Oh, I go to
doing the Marriage of Figaro this season. Isn't that right?
They are, but I'm not in that run. So it's a different cast. It's a different cast of people, a really great cast of people. So if anybody hasn't seen it yet, they should definitely go. I go to Washington, D.C. in, I think it's May when we have the performances. So May, I'm doing my very first Carmen, which I would say that a lot of people who haven't seen opera probably know about the opera of Carmen.
Yes,
it is
very, very well-known music.
So I will be singing my first Carmen, which is wonderful. My mother's from Argentina. I am a Latina, you know.
Aww.
I have a lot of connections in a way to all of the things historically in the opera, although it is in French, written by a French composer. But that will be in May. And then I actually go out to Santa Fe, New Mexico to do the same opera, different production out in Santa Fe. And then for anybody who wants to make a trip to Italy, I will be actually also making my debut at La Scala in, I think it's November, in interestingly enough, a modern piece called The Tempest, which is like Shakespeare's The Tempest. And I sing the role of Miranda, right? The two young lovers, Miranda and Ferdinand. It is not Shakespeare language, however, and it is written by Thomas Adès, who is a contemporary living composer. And I've done it actually now at the Met before. And so it'll be really nice to actually revisit that one because it's been a handful of years since I've done it. So those are kind of the three kind of big things that are coming up. So like I said, make a trip. I mean, who doesn't want to go to Italy? This is the thing. Like, people are like, I don't want to go to opera, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but if you get into it, then you start traveling the world.
Yeah, no, you get to these excuses to do these fabulous trips. And do people still dress up for the opera too?
Oh, sure. I mean, people dress up, people dress down. Honestly, at this point, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
If you go to opening night, you could totally dress up, but you don't, it's not a requirement. You don't have to, you know.
But how fabulous to have a reason to dress up too.
I think it's just, listen, I love going to the theater, whatever the theater may be. And I think going to see something live and to really appreciate what the humans are doing on stage, like they, you know, it's like you need us as much as we need you. I mean, we need you more, honestly. But it's such a nice, you get this nice feeling from the stage to the audience and vice versa. So we always like having new people there anyway, especially because it's the new audience members who clap all the time and who have really genuine reactions. And that's what we want. We want people to hear something for the first time and laugh, because then we know it was actually funny. It wasn't because they knew it was coming. So,
well, I think about that scene from Pretty Woman where Richard Gere says, you know, the first time you see the opera, you either love it or you hate it. And then she's crying. She has such a moving experience. And I think probably the first time I saw the opera too, I had a really strong reaction, just really loving it. And I fortunately get to go to San Francisco Opera from time to time, which is a wonderful opera house. I don't know if you've performed in San Francisco.
Yeah, I have a handful of years ago now. I think my son was maybe 3 at the time when I was out there at the opera. I've sung with a symphony quite a lot. I love San Francisco.
With Michael Tilson Thomas, I saw you won a Grammy with him. No big deal.
Yes. No big deal.
No big deal. Just one of my 3 Grammys.
Just go drink my
nominated for 1 more this year. No big deal.
No, it was really great. It's a beautiful compendium CD. There's a lot of great artists on it. So it's a great thing. And a super great, you know, accolade also for him and his piece, because he had written the piece. So yeah,
for sure. Well, so wonderful to meet you. I hope everyone gets a chance to go out and see you, myself included. Now I'm definitely having it on my list to come see you in a live performance.
You have to, and let me know if you come, please.
I will.
Once COVID is done, hopefully, then we can actually have people backstage again, you know, and that's
that
fun.
would be a dream.
Yeah,
and
no, seriously.
Come visit us in wine country too. We would love to host you as well.
I'll be there. You won't be able to get rid of me.
Sounds fabulous. Cheers to you, Isabel. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Thanks for giving me
to everyone.
Cheers. Well, that was so wonderful. I just really enjoyed getting a behind the scenes tour of Isabel's life, what it's like to be an opera singer and beyond. She was so gracious to give us some of her time, and I hope you guys tune in soon for future happy hours. Please be sure to follow us at BACA Wines for our future happy hours. And thank you all so much for watching. Here's to your next adventure and the wine that finds your glass.